All right, my friends, it's a brand new year and it's a brand new season of Marvel television. I've taken a look at the series Echo, and I also got a chance to speak with some of the cast and crew. Take a look. I'm here with Sydney Freeland. Great to meet you, Sydney. How are you doing?
Great to meet you all.
Can you take us into the story of Echo?
Echo is the story about Maya Lopez, a deaf indigenous woman from Oklahoma who becomes a top-ranking lieutenant in Wilson Fisk, aka Kingpin's underground criminal army in New York. We're going to learn how she ascended to those ranks, and then we're going to follow her back home to New York, and we're also going to explore some of her biological family as well, too.
I'm with Vincent D'Onofrio. It's great to meet you. And Vincent, I want to ask, first of all, what makes a good villain?
I think if they're based in reality, those are my favorite ones. They're grounded, that there's an emotional life that they have. That's why I like playing Kingpin so much, is because he works best with that kind of writing.
What is it about Echo and Daredevil and their sort of grittier, more mature feel that is so important to these things working to their success?
I think when it comes to Echo, there's a really good story there. You know, when you watch the series, I think you'll find that you're just watching a really good series. I mean, yes, it's about this great character, Maya, and Alaqua's performance is fantastic, and people are going to be amazed by that, by the way. She's just immensely talented. But it does feel like a real series. It doesn't try to be something that's magical or this or that. It's just a hard-hitting, really good story about a young woman trying to find herself and all of the obstacles in that journey that she causes herself and that other people are trying to cause her. It's really, and she just, Alaqua pulls it off. She's just amazing in it.
I am here with Richie Palmer, who is the executive producer on Echo. Congratulations, Richie. How did you find Alaqua Cox? She's fantastic. She's such an incredible performer.
When it was decided that we wanted to introduce Maya in Hawkeye, much like she was introduced in the comics in Daredevil, we knew we had to find the perfect person to play Maya, and Sarah Finn, who's been doing all of our casting for us since day one at Marvel, did a hugely extensive search trying to find Maya, and Alaqua sent in a self-tape, and she was so cool and impressive. She was doing all of her own stunts in her video with a prosthetic leg, and it was quite impressive to watch. And she just had this quality. You know, when you watch a show, she's like Clint Eastwood. Like, she could do so much with just a look on her face that really actually intimidates everyone in the room. And she just had that quality to her that we knew she was the one.
Is she doing a lot of the fight sequences and stuff that we see her do? They're terrific, by the way. Not to spoil too much, but that opening fight with Daredevil and Echo is incredible.
Yeah, Mark Skizak led our stunt team, and he worked directly with Alaqua. She wanted to do more than we could even legally let her. I mean, anything that that we would let her do, she could do. She was always on wires and jumping off of things and hanging off of trains, and it was quite impressive to see. She never wanted to hold back. It was really cool.
I know a lot of people are curious about the difference of working within the confines of the MCU and how you approached Wilson Fisk as part of the Netflix series. Is there a difference?
That comes up a lot. You know, for me, it's like I'm an actor and my job is to service the story. You know, whatever the script is, my job is to service the story. So whether it's Hawkeye or Echo or the Netflix series or Born Again, you know, I recognize good writing when I see it, you know. But my job is, in the end, to service the story, like to do the best I can with what there is on the page. And we've been lucky, or I've been lucky with, you know, Echo being, for me, just my personal taste, the tone of Echo, the maturity of Echo, the way it feels is I think the proper kind of environment for my character to, I think he's best portrayed in that kind of tone. And it's very similar to the tone in Daredevil, and it's going to lead into a very similar tone in Born Again.
This is the first in the Marvel Spotlight series. Why don't you explain a little bit about what you're doing with this new brand, this new banner?
Maya was an obscure character in the comics that I think 5 or 10 years ago, if you said we want to make a show about Maya Lopez, I think it would have been harder to get across. But now where we are in the world of Marvel Television, we have the opportunity to tell so many different kinds of stories about different characters that bring with them different tones and different full casts of characters with them. It was just about opening up a new corner of the MCU that we haven't had the opportunity to yet. So we're calling it a spotlight because we really literally want to shine a spotlight on Maya Lopez and say, hey, we never saw Oklahoma in the MCU. I wonder what's going on over there.
Does it have anything to do with the grittiness or the mature sensibility of the content? Like Daredevil should be a little bit, I think, grittier, and Echo's a little bit grittier and a little bit more violent?
A little bit. I think that they're not mutually exclusive. I think there will also be spotlight shows in the future that are not violent and are friendly for all ages. I think it's more about taking characters out of obscurity and into the MCU, you know? And I think at the same time, we are trying to make sure that every story that we tell feels different than the one that came before it. So there will be some that are more TVMA, there will be some that are for family.
We're introduced to some sort of metaphysical, spiritual, ancient type of origins with Maya here. Talk to us a little bit about exploring all of these different timelines and how tricky that was for you.
One of the aspects about the series that I'm so excited to explore is Maya's matrilineal ancestry. So we get to see where she comes from. And so you've got this great kind of two-pronged approach to the story, which is that you have this deeply human, grounded, street-level story and this sort of fantastical, mysterious element where we are seeing ancestors along Maya's timeline going further and further back in time. And I'm trying to explain that without spoiling the series, but suffice to say, those two things are connected, and there's a reason we're seeing both of them.
How much do you work with the actors to kind of fill them in all of that backstory? Do you let them know that there's any kind of roots when two characters are having a scene together, or is it just in the moment?
You certainly try to have as many conversations as possible, and I think with somebody like Alaqua, it all starts and stems from the character and the situation. And so the conversation with Alaqua was just giving her as much context as possible going to a scene. Where are you coming from? Where are you going? Like, what is the emotional thrust of this moment? And then if you have an ancestor or another relative in there, you build on that dynamic between the two of them.
There's so many stories in the MCU now. Is this new direction also kind of an effort on the part of Marvel to kind of separate itself a little bit from the architecture and having to know all of the ins and outs of all of the other stories?
Yeah, when telling the story of Echo, we wanted to make sure that you could turn it on with episode 1 and get everything you needed to know about Maya's backstory up front and out of the way so we could just have a good time with her on the show and just tell a story about her and her family.
Talk to me about the sound design, because I think one of the coolest things as we get into Echo's headspace, sound drops away. We feel some of the percussive elements of the show. How do you plan for that on set while you're putting those pieces together?
Yeah, I think we always knew, representation was so important to us, and so we wanted to try to put the audience in the perspective of Maya Lopez, whenever possible. And so, I will say the deaf POV, it wasn't something that we necessarily set out to do, but in the process of researching, and even like for all of us taking ASL classes, it was something that sort of that was born organically out of the process that we were able to build this deaf POV. But it all stemmed from the story and trying to put the audience in her perspective.
How much of a comic book reader are you? Do you actually go into the source material to kind of pull some character stuff?
These days, I sometimes go back into it, but I read comics when I was young. I didn't have a lot of them, but I had certain characters certain heroes and villains that I really liked. And then I think I got back into Swamp Thing. I got into Swamp Thing when I was in my 30s. I was really into that. I occasionally will go back and look at the art that Miller's run and a couple other runs before Miller's. Some of the art is so, especially the art of Wilson Fisk is so interesting to me. And I've used that a lot to inspire my performance.
You work with some really cool actors in this show, but I want to talk specifically about the legend Graham Greene. That "buy the damn thing" moment, that was chef's kiss. That was beautiful. What's it like working with Graham Greene?
I'll tell you a Graham Greene story. Graham is in this show. Everybody took ASL classes, right? And our actors, I won't get into all the mechanics of it, but basically we had an American Sign Language master who would translate the scripts from English to ASL. The actors would memorize it. They'd work with our ASL master to get the translation down from English to ASL. Graham came from, he was coming in from Canada, and due to the circumstances, he had to fly straight to the airport and come straight to set for his first rehearsal. And so on set, we had deaf interpreters, we had ASL experts, we had all these people. And in this first rehearsal scene together, Graham showed up and I said, "Hey, Graham, listen, I know you just got off the plane. Don't worry about being off book. Don't worry about like any of the ASL. Just read the lines and we'll go through the scene." And Graham shows up and he's like, "Okay," and we set the scene and action. So in the first take of the first rehearsal, Graham Greene was not only off book but self-taught in ASL. And
Amazing.
And Alaqua literally stopped in the middle of the scene to sort of like she was sort of surprised in the best possible sense.
Got a great question from a viewer from Ian Boothby. Said, how would your detective Robert Gorin do in an interrogation with Wilson Fisk?
I think there would have to be some pretty big steel bars in between them before he would get into an interview room with Wilson Fisk. I don't think Wilson Fisk would have the patience for him.
Yeah, it's funny how he just walks around and pushes police officers out of the way. It's great. We're starting to hear rumblings of Tom Holland's Spidey 4. Is the Kingpin going to be in that movie?
If he is, nobody's told me. I hope one day that will happen one day. I don't know, but no, I don't know.
Well, you are wonderful in the role. Kingpin is such an important character, and you are not squandering the opportunity, and you're just entertaining us like crazy. So thank you.
That's very nice of you to say. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I can't wait for people to see this, Sydney. Congratulations, and thank you very much. So I haven't watched every episode of Echo yet. I'm kind of digging it, but there are some formulaic elements for sure. I've still got a couple episodes to go, and I'll come back with some final thoughts. But I will say the Daredevil and action sequences that are in the show, pretty damn sweet. All right, you guys, I'll be back with some new content for you very soon. If you dug this video, hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you want to support the channel. We'll see you soon, and until then, play forever.